David Jones, Robert Half's annual salary surveys were conducted during the first quarter of 2010 and give an overview of the employment landscape and future outlook for the finance, banking and accounting sectors. What was the scope of these surveys?
There were two distinct surveys that were undertaken across Asia Pacific, one to all commerce and industry-based clients and one to all financial services and banking-based clients. The responses that we had were over 3,500, so it was very significant. And with the data, we were really able to distill down and focus on a number of key statistics and evaluate both what really employers are feeling in today's marketplace and also what employees are feeling about today's market as well.
The global economy has experienced a turbulent time over the last few years, and the Asia-Pacific region has not escaped this. Can you give us an overview of staffing changes that the finance, accounting and banking sectors have faced over the past 12 months and shed some light on what's in store for 2010 and 2011?
So the main thing is that markets, whether it's within commerce and industry or financial services, have definitely stabilised in all countries over the last 12 months. You can look at Asia Pacific and sort of draw some comparisons between countries and how they've performed. The stronger performing countries, or the countries that have rebounded fastest from the downturn, would be Australia, Singapore and Hong Kong. Japan and New Zealand, albeit that their economies are perhaps at two opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of size, you can almost put them in the same boat. They've perhaps followed more the akin to what's been happening in North America and Europe in terms of their economies. The financial services markets have bounced back first in really all countries. I don't think that that's too unusual, given that they went into the downturn first, so that's pretty normal, as given what's happened in prior downturns around the world.
Now that there's a more positive outlook for the Asia-Pacific region, are we due to see more movement of employees around the region?
More movement is occurring. It's fair to say, though, that the majority of movement is happening within companies. It's not necessarily happening through third parties like ourselves. It does occur, but it would be wrong of me to say it's happening on a mass scale at the moment. People are still very much focused on cost and cost control, and expats are more expensive than local employees. And wherever possible, people are always looking to get talent from the local marketplace rather than look people internationally. Within an organisation, though, within a multinational, whether that multinational is within banking or whether that multinational is within wider commerce and industry, there is more international moves that are occurring in order to help retain their best staff members going forward.
Are there any gender-specific trends that have emerged through the Robert Half APAC salary surveys?
Well, I think over the last 12 to 18 months, people have had to work more hours. A number of people have had to take reductions in pay. So there's been somewhat of a trade-off. What are people looking for if they are working more hours or working for less money? For some people, that could be additional training and benefits and so on and so forth. In terms of gender-specific, one thing that we are seeing is that the survey responses really showed that women are looking for greater flexibility over men, whether that be flexible work arrangements or the ability to be able to work from home. That being said, not all employers are able to provide that degree of flexibility in today's market.
There is a renewed level of optimism in the Asia-Pacific region. Has this resulted in an influx of job opportunities, or are employers still showing some reluctance to commit to hiring new staff? And are candidates in the finance, accounting and banking sectors feeling more confident about looking for new job opportunities?
If you look in all countries, employment rates are stabilising or going down. Job posting numbers are increasing. But there are really two types of jobs that are being offered, or the reason why vacancies are occurring. Those that are a result of expansive progression, as in terms of there are new jobs being created, or jobs being created as a consequence of people moving around. So people perhaps cut a little bit too deep in some countries within Asia Pacific during the downturn, particularly those multinational organisations, whether that's in banking or commerce, that were domiciled or headquartered overseas in Europe or North America, that could sort of see the extent of the downturn and try to get ahead of the curve. And then perhaps in some parts of Asia Pacific, most notably Australia, Singapore and Hong Kong, perhaps cut a little bit too deeply. The reality is, though, that people's sentiment is improving all of the time. So people are more confident about looking for new job opportunities, and that in itself is causing movement within financial services or within wider commerce and industry. So there's really two reasons for renewed optimism. Yes, there are more jobs being created, but as employees feel more comfortable, confident about their own job security, they are moving and looking for new opportunities.
Do employees in Singapore believe that their salary is in line with the current market conditions?
Yeah, based on the results, there was a difference of opinion between financial services and commerce and industry. Financial services was in keeping with the rest of the marketplace across Asia Pacific, but commerce and industry was quite different, with the highest number of people saying that they felt that they were under-remunerated right now at just under 40%. So that's, I think, something that employers need to take into consideration when they're dialoguing with their employees.
How confident are employees in Singapore in their company's growth prospects? And has the upturn led to a more optimistic attitude?
Yeah, definitely. So with all the responses from all the countries, people were sort of most optimistic in Singapore, with over 80% of employees being surveyed feeling very positive about their employing companies and their growth prospects. Something that did come out the survey as well, though, is sort of the flip side of that coin is the employers are very worried about how they're going to hang on to their best talent in Singapore, and that's a very real problem. And it's really important that they get that dialogue open, that the reviews take place, and not perhaps just annual reviews, but even quarterly or at worst biannual reviews, to make sure the dialogue is occurring.
Now that the job market has become more buoyant, how open are Singapore employees in the finance, accounting and banking sectors to discussing salary expectations?
Well, this is a worry for the employers, and it's very similar results to Hong Kong. Roughly 80% of people, whether they're in financial services, whether in commerce and industry, would rather move jobs to get a salary increase and even bring up as a discussion point with their present employer. And that's a difficult work environment to operating as a business. So I think that requires some open dialogue.
How did the economic downturn affect the work-life balance for finance, accounting and banking staff in Singapore?
So our survey results showed us that in all the countries surveyed, the Singaporeans work the longest hours as the norm. So arguably they've always suffered a little bit from work-life balance compared to perhaps their counterparts in countries like Australia and New Zealand. People didn't seem to be overly dissatisfied with the hours that they're working or feel overly pressurised to work those hours. It was more of an expectation. That's what's required to be done to sort of go on, get promoted and climb the corporate ladder.
Are there any industry sectors in Singapore that you predict will be more buoyant in the next 12 to 18 months?
But within financial services, there's going to be an ongoing demand for product controllers. There's going to be an increased demand for people in risk and compliance-based areas. Overall, the financial services industry is bouncing back and doing pretty well. Within wider commerce and industry, I think it's more the sort of the analytical-based skills, the FP&A-based roles, and as well as the sort of general financial control. Make sure that we are leveraging expense packages, or make sure that employers are leveraging expense packages appropriately without necessarily aggressively adding to headcount or expanding businesses beforehand.